On today's episode of the DeRaud-Messinger Show, we preview and predict number 7 Texas versus Iowa State. Longhorns fans, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. It's greatly appreciated. And of course, check us out at HornSports.com, where later on we'll be talking about some of the controversy that might have been started by us in the Longhorn Twitter sphere. Good controversy, not it's motivating. Don't worry. But anyway, Dylan, as always, to start, we have some basic game info. The game will be held Saturday, the 18th of November at 7 p.m. Central Time at Jack Trice Stadium in Ames, Iowa. Warning, it might be a little bit cold. Nothing crazy, but it's going to be televised on Fox. In Texas currently, of course, the line moves with the days, is favored by 7.5 points. Now, Dylan, get us into your scouting report of Iowa State.
Yeah, Devon. So this is a team that lost to Iowa. I mean, not Iowa. Well, they also lost to Iowa. They lost to Ohio as well
I
in
was going
week
to say,
three.
yeah,
There
that's
was a
not
clip
wrong.
of Matt Campbell leaving the game, and some Iowa State fan at the Ohio game was telling him, should be out of a job. Since then, though, they've really turned it around. I believe they've won a few straight games. They had the loss to Kansas, I believe, but other than that, they've got some wins
Well,
similar
they're
to Texas.
5-2 in conference,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
quite well in the top tier, if you will, of standing.
And their losses in the conference was to Oklahoma and Kansas, I believe, and they've yet to play. They play Kansas State after this week, so they've really put it together here during Big 12 play, which is what I was trying to touch on. And I think the biggest thing that you're seeing is they're number 4 in the Big 12 points per game allowed at 19.9, but also, Devin, they're number 1 in the Big 12 in total offense at 329 per game. They're number 1 in the Big 12 in completion percentage at 53.8, and they're number 1 in pass yards
Total
allowed.
offense in terms of defensive total offense.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
So total defense.
Allowing less yards. Yes.
Okay.
Clarified. Thank you.
My
If that was
eyes are about
confusing.
to pop. I was like, oh my gosh, I
Okay.
must have
Well,
missed
yeah.
something.
Don't worry. And then they're number 1 in pass yards allowed at 204.3. So they've been really good against the pass. And then on the other side, against the run, Devin, they're number 3 in the Big 12 in rush yards. And then they're tied for second average yards per carry at 3.7. And then they're tied for third in turnovers per game too. So very solid defense, and that is kind of spearheaded by a formation that they deploy a few. Sometimes that's the kind of 3 safeties that they'll have out there in moments. If they've got sophomore free safety Jeremiah Cooper, keep an eye on if he actually does play. He's been out since the Baylor game, October 28th, but it's more likely that he does play, according to Campbell. But he's got 5 interceptions and 6 passes defended, with an interception for a touchdown as well, Devin. So
Did you
he's
say
number 1 in the
5
big.
interceptions?
Yes,
Oh,
5 interceptions. Yeah, he's number 1 in the Big 12 in interceptions, and he's missed, I think, the past 2 to 3 games. So he's been on fire back there. Then you got the middle safety, Bo Frailer. He's got 3 interceptions and 4 passes defended. He leads the team in tackles with 67 and 1 recorded sack. And then you've got the other safety and Malik Vernon, who's got 2 interceptions and 2 passes. But he stands at 6'4". So he's a very tall safety back there that can match up well against some of the length that Texas has when it comes to the receiving threats. And then you got cornerbacks, and the biggest one, Devin, senior cornerback TJ Tampa. I don't know if you've heard about him yet, but you'll probably know a lot more coming after this game. He's one of the higher rated NFL prospects at the cornerback position. He's like a first to third round projection right now. He's got 2 interceptions and 7 passes defended. He's tied for 4th in the Big 12 in passes defended. So he's been great there. Then you got Miles Purchase on the other side. He's been a good compliment. And then in the linebacking group, not the strongest portion of their team, but sophomore linebacker Caleb Bacon. He's a former walk-on. He leads linebackers with 37 tackles. And then you got Gary Vaughn as well. And then Will McLaughlin kind of filling out the other sides. And then on the front 4, they don't have the best front 4 in the Big 12, obviously, but they got defensive tackle J.R. Singleton, and then Trent Jones and Joey Peterson on the outside, and then defensive lineman Tyler Oni Edom, Devin, up front as well. So that is the defense for Iowa State. Very good unit this year, and a lot of work for Texas ahead of them here.
yeah, Dylan, and the offense was plagued by the gambling scandal from the late summer, so we do have a different name at quarterback than we typically have. Of course, not a fun situation for Iowa State, but a at least entertaining one in terms of something different going on in terms of what shakes our scouting reports on the week to week. The redshirt freshman quarterback Rocco Becht actually has done a pretty good job, though, Dylan, of filling in for Hunter Deckers, and yet again caught up in that gambling scandal. Redshirt freshman
Yeah.
quarterback that is being thrown into the fire has 15 touchdowns, seven, interceptions, which is an improvement over, I believe, what Texas was facing last weekend in Josh Hoover, where the ratio was not quite as kind for the young quarterback. So he's leading the way with 2,121 passing yards in addition to the 15 touchdowns that I mentioned earlier. And receiving threats, Dylan, there's really two that stick out. In some of these games we've had, there's been 3 or 4 where you really can throw a number of, patterns or whatever, and you're just going to get what you get. Here at 6'4", junior wide receiver Jaden Higgins leading the way. He's got 36 catches on the year, 610 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then another junior is his, combo wide receiver threat. And 5'10", you get polar opposites here. You get the 5'10" junior Jalen Knoll, 52 receptions, 536 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So the stats between the top two are pretty similar. However, the two, just in terms of what they're built of, what they're made out of, they're very different. You have size and speed differences. So it does pose a threat for a Texas team that defensively in that secondary, Dylan, of course, is really hit or miss depending seemingly on what half you're getting them in. Of course, though, complimentary football hasn't been there, as Steve Sarkisian would like to note, but there have been problems for Texas in the secondary. And, Dylan, tight end you. I got to mention it. I love a good tight end player. Dylan, 6'7" freshman, Benjamin Bramer. 6'7". I mean, let's get this guy in the Oklahoma Sooners right away. 271 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. But overall, like I said, Knoll and Higgins are the 2 threats to watch out for. Of course, though, teams like Iowa State like to mix it up for an opponent like Texas with NFL talent at multiple positions. So we might see a combination of some different things, but receiving-wise, those are the guys to watch. And then at running back, you got redshirt sophomore Eli Sanders, who is the top dog with 467 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. But this is where it gets interesting, because you got 3 different guys that have gotten a good amount of carries. Starting with sophomore, now this is kind of close to the Quintavious meme you hear on Twitter, or Jatavian. You got sophomore running back Cartavius Norton, and then freshman running back Abu Sama, or I might have mispronounced that. I'm sorry if I did, but both have been productive. And Abu had a ton of yards, I believe, last week. And I think he got doing an honorable mention or a Big 12 Newcomer of the Week award last weekend, and 100-plus rushing yards. So they are being interesting in terms of running the football. It hasn't always been just Sanders leading the way for them at running back. They have 3 guys with over 300 rushing yards. And, of course, with Texas now having to roll out Baxter Dillon, they're also going to have some change-ups at that position as well. And offensively, on the offensive line, this is where the one stat on offense that matters, seemingly. I looked up all these names, of course. Iowa State not doing too bad with the aforementioned gambling issue, Dylan. But that offensive line is tied 7th in the country in terms of sacks allowed per game. I believe with Georgia being also tied with 7th. There's a bunch of big-name schools there. But they've only allowed 0.9 sacks per game. So pretty much 1 sack per game is what they're allowing. Of course, Dylan mentioned that they did play Ohio, which is not the Ohio State, but Ohio. But everybody in this conference has played a cupcake. So still 0.9 sacks at this point in the year. And with inexperience at quarterback, that is quite the big deal to be had. Now, Dylan, X Factors, who should we be watching out for on Saturday?
Yeah, I think the biggest matchup, and I kind of hinted at it, but it's going to be TJ Tampa and Miles Purchase against this receiving core for Texas when it just comes to Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy. You saw how important they were in the TCU game. Iowa State's going to have some of the best corners in the Big 12. It's going to be a real test for them. It's going to be very paramount for Iowa State to take away this passing game for Texas, because without Jonathon Brooks for the season for Texas, it's going to be on CJ Baxter and Jadon Blue to carry the running game load here. And if Iowa State can kind of stick them out on islands and play man in a lot of sense and move up those linebackers, it's going to make it a lot easier for them to defend against this running game of Texas. So it's going to be very important for Worthy and Mitchell to have big games, as well as Sanders making plays on third down and second down when it matters.
Dylan, I went with almost the obvious choice, but sometimes it's too obvious when you say it like that. I got CJ Baxter. I mean, he's going to have to fill in for Jonathon Brooks, which is a huge loss. The fact that Jonathon Brooks went from being kind of, I don't know, Dylan, an undersold commodity in terms of Texas football talk to being RB1 on many people's NFL mock draft board. That's quite the jump. You can't replace Brooks with just one guy, so Baxter, of course, has a lot of expectations and pressure that comes with those expectations. However, you can't just attribute it to him. But as Dylan's mentioning, Quinn Ewers and the wide receivers, they're going to have a lot of work cut out for them. That's why I'm curious about what Iowa State's game plan is defensively. Of course, we're going to have to wait and see. They have the cover corners to just let themselves load up the box. However, CJ Baxter, Dylan, yet again, he's had a fair share of rush attempts and stuff like that, but he hasn't had the opportunity to carry a team for a full game and still has the need to showcase that. As a result, I also wouldn't be surprised if Iowa State lets Texas run and prevents the Ewers pass. But I would be almost more tempted, Dylan, like I said, to lean towards them stacking the box just with them being so confident in the cornerbacks that they have.
Yeah.
Something to watch out for. Were you going to say something?
I mean, it's a lot. Like, it's a big adjustment going from 5 to 10 rushes a game to then becoming the workhorse back in a sense. And I know they'll probably
especially as a freshman.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be the biggest thing, is you're going to have to adjust within the game, and that's where Iowa State can really lean on that and take advantage of the situation, because Baxter is going to be making some growing pains during the game, and the question is, can he make it quick enough when it came to the reads? Because that's what Brooks was so good at, following his blockers,
100%.
finding the opening, right? And so you're losing that with Baxter. He's going to be making some freshman mistakes. He's going to have the freshman legs, right? But that's going to be the biggest question, is where is he following the blocks, making the right reads here? Because it is a whole different ball game when you're the lead back and defenses are keying in on you.
No, that's 100% correct. Jonathon Brooks, he might not have the highest top-end speed, but he reads his blocks like an NFL All-Pro. He is patient and explodes when he needs to. CJ Baxter, of course, yet again, a true freshman, not a redshirt freshman. At times, Dylan, he just hits the hole as hard as he can, and honestly, it hasn't not worked for him. He has done actually quite well and was the starting running back, I believe, for week 1 and 2. Then dealt with some injuries, Dylan, so that's part of the reason why he's been, a little bit rusty, if you will. But he has not been a bad running back. But with that being said, as we discussed, he's going to have a lot more expectations. He's going to have to show a little bit more for Steve Sarkisian to feel comfortable with that running game. But with that being said, maybe this is the week to just air it out, Dylan. I don't know what was happening in that second half against TCU. Now, danger level. How are you feeling here?
Oh, gosh. So I kind of hinted at this at the beginning of the year, and it almost got even worse with this Brooks injury. But I've got it sitting at a danger level of 10 because, like I said, a night game in Ames, and it wasn't confirmed yet at the beginning of the season, but it felt like the game that could possibly be put in at a night spot on upset alert, and that's exactly what's happening. And this defense is very good for Iowa State. And then so add on to the fact that Brooks is injured, Ewers is coming off an injury, still going to be shaking off a bit of rust. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit better in this game, but there's still that to be conscious of. This is a tough spot for Texas, especially when all you hear about on these shows, Devon, talking about rankings, is Texas controls their own destiny, and they've got an easy schedule, right? It was kind of presumed the moment after they beat Kansas State, they run the table. Iowa State sitting in a prime spot to really play spoiler here, and that worries me for this one. They've been stellar on defense. Like I said, they allowed that 50 points to Oklahoma, but that was at a time where they hadn't rounded in fully into form. And this is a Texas team that keeps letting teams back in. They had that huge lead on Kansas State. Guess who came back? Kansas State. Sizable lead over TCU at the halftime.
Very sizable, 20 points.
Yeah, guess who comes back? TCU. So Texas, as great as they have been, they continue to let teams that they should be allowing back into games. And that's what I'm worried about going into this game. That's why I got it at 10.
In the road environment of a night game at TCU, which is already pretty tough to face, Dylan, is one thing. But Iowa State road environment at night, as you talked about in terms of your 10, that's something to be scared of. I do not like ever watching a Texas quarterback go into Ames, Iowa, regardless of the time. I don't have it as highly rated in terms of a danger level. I do have it high. I have it at 6. I would say just for how the team itself has performed so far this season, Dylan, I think that's warranted. However, I also agree in terms of mentally, I am classifying this maybe as a 10. Maybe it's my overreaction syndrome that Texas has let me develop over the course of the season, Dylan. But definitely should be worried about this game if you are a fan. Yeah. I put it in my prediction section, but I'm just going to get to it now. Some of the reasons that we're giving it such a high danger level is A, Ames is always a tough place to play, like I said. The environment is not conducive to a road team, which is a good thing if you have a home field advantage. Number 2, it's going to be cold. Nothing crazy, Dylan, but I do feel like Texas always has a road game at about this time of the year, this temperature in the past like 15 years, and they've either A, just let the other team hang in there the entire game, or B, just laid an egg and lost on the road. And then the other two combinations, yet again, we talked about the loss of Brooks. In terms of finding yourself, Sark likes to preach versatility as a team. He's going to have to really test and see how versatile his team is. And then the 30-point streak snapped against TCU last weekend. Now, I'm not going to get into my prediction just yet, but I'm not so confident that we're getting north of 30 with all of that being said. Dylan, was there anything else danger level you wanted to say?
No, again, that's pretty much it. But it really is that Ames, Iowa factor. And I believe Texas has lost the last 4 out of 5 on the road here against Iowa State. So it has not been conducive to specifically Texas in this regard.
Yes. Now, you're hinting at some danger. Is that reflected in your prediction?
Yeah, Devon. So you're gonna be surprised, but I always made mention of this when Texas went like 7-5 that one year or 8-4. We kept picking them to win, right? I've got Iowa State in this one. I've got Iowa State winning this 24-23. This is the spot where Texas would lose and still have a chance at the college football, not college football playoff, the Big 12 championship game. If they lose this college football playoff, as you can imagine, is going to be going out the window. But this just feels like the spot, Devin. They've got a good offense. They've got a good front seven. It's just that they allow teams to come back into it, and you can throw on them. Hoover threw for 304 yards, albeit some of that was seemingly garbage time, but almost became not garbage time and more of a comeback when you got later into that game. So you can pass on them, and I expect Beck to be able to do that. He's looked very good. Devin, surprisingly enough, I believe he's one touchdown shy of tying Brock Purdy's freshman touchdown record. So he's doing really well for himself as a redshirt freshman. He's not your typical one that you'd expect with Texas going up against them. And Devin, a big key factor here for Iowa State, too, that they've been doing very well this year is a red zone efficiency. They're the best in the Big 12 and 12th nationally with a red zone percentage of 92.86%. So they've been absolutely stellar when it comes to putting that ball in the end zone, and that's going to be very important for an upset. So I think the biggest keys for their victory here is the time of the possession, turnover battle, and limiting the big plays to Worthy and Mitchell. They've got the guys on the outside to do it. They've got the scheme to do that too, to really bait yours into some bad throws. So I got Iowa State with the win in this one.
Yeah, this is Dylan, upset central waiting to happen. However, I am not going down the same road, but I do give you kudos for picking this game because this would be a hard one for me to pick as well. I have Texas winning 27-20. I don't think they get north of those 30 points once again after snapping their streak to TCU in terms of getting north of that. Ames is always a tough environment to play, and I was alluding to it at the start. We're not insiders at HornSport in terms of insiders, not insiders. We're not starting stuff to start stuff. But Iowa State, their left guard, Gerard Hufford, started talking some trash to Texas, more so the program and the culture, I would say, rather than any individual player. But Texas players have rallied around that, Dylan. You can see the rally cries going on Twitter quote tweets, which, of course, what day and age are we talking about when we're talking about trash talking going on Twitter? I'm just saying that to say that Texas a lot of times comes into this game just kind of sleepwalking, for lack of a better word. This weekend seems like they're a little more fired up than usual. Does that matter, though? Yet again, Dylan said, Texas every year seems to let us believe that something's going to change. And Dylan, maybe this weekend I'm the fool here. I mean, we'll see. But we always believe the change. We don't see it. If they want to win this game, yet again, I don't know if I said the score, but 27-20, Texas. If they're wanting to win this game, it's cool, Dylan, but they're going to have to build a lead and not give it up. I mean, that's shocking to say. And if they're going to want, yet again, the most important thing this weekend is winning against Iowa State. College football playoff does not matter. However, if you're going to want a shot at the college football playoff, you're going to have to put away teams like Iowa State or TCU or Kansas State, as we've talked about. When you have huge leads, you can't be letting these teams back in. You got to put your foot on the pedal. All gas, no brakes, pun intended there. I think Texas finds a way, Dylan. Sark's talked about the versatility, but I think the key to versatility, as I mentioned earlier, is complementary football. When you're not playing complementary football, it's hard for the entire team to help each other out. Quinn Ewers, Dylan, it's going to have to be the Quinn Ewers game. This is going to have to be, the equivalent of a Jordan Flu game. This is going to have to be the Quinn Ewers game. Because C.J. Baxter, he might go off on Saturday. He's a very talented running back, I believe ranked the top running back in the high school football recruiting scene last year. But he's going to have to go off. And Quinn Ewers going to have to show that he can rust off that shaky second half. Can't attribute that entirely to him. Some interesting play calling going on, but yet again, Dylan, there's a lot of question marks. Any rebuttal there?
No, sir. I'm excited for it.
All right, now I'm sure you guys are excited for it as well. What's your final score prediction for Texas versus Iowa State? Let us know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check us out at hornsports.com. And as always, don't forget to have a great rest of your day.